So there's 5 most common mental health issues affecting young people. The first 2 we've mentioned, depression and anxiety. And then 2 then we have eating disorders. They're called bipolar. It used to be called manic depression. So it's the moods moving from really low to really high. They call it a mania. Now it's not common compared to things like depression and anxiety, but I think it's really important that we be aware of them. And the final one is schizophrenia. And that's a mental health issue which usually starts to show itself in later teenage years, 16 and above. Again, not as common as depression and anxiety, but it would just be on the flag that it's a common issue in our community. So I thought I'd work through the two most common ones, depression and anxiety, and we'll have a look at what are the signs and symptoms, what would you be looking out for. And again, you can read 2 cases here. Think about what this might mean for your child, your teenager. And you can also think of it amongst friends and family. They are common issues, so it can be good just to file it away that, okay, any one of us at some stage may experience signs or symptoms. So when we look at depression, now, when I work with young people, they will often talk about sometimes feeling flat or depressed. Now, I think it is normal in the flow of the day or the week that our mood can go up and down. But when we talk about a depressive illness, we're talking about a sustained period where the mood is low, and that can be 2 or more weeks of the mood being very low. And in a depressive illness, it can be from a couple of months up to 12, 18 months. So we're looking at, kids may say, I'm depressed, but that's quite different to them being clinically depressed. But what we might look for in signs of a young person being depressed, we'll start with the feelings, and often you'll see a change in, they can be more irritable. Now, I have to frame this, with teenagers their moods go up and down anyway, and they can be cranky. That can just be like adolescence, but we're looking at out of the ordinary and sustained over a period of time. So they can be irritable, really cranky, get frustrated really easily, and you'll see a change in their confidence. They may have once been like out there doing things, and then you'll see a change that lacking confidence, falling back, and easily overwhelmed. We're likely to see like them just being generally unhappy or sad. And in some cases, you may hear them, oh, what's the point? A sense of helplessness or hopelessness. And there can be a change in things like easily disappointed or indecisive, just having real trouble on an ongoing basis of making decisions about what they need to do. Now, if we cluster that with some of the thinking, now there's usually styles of thinking that you hear in someone who's depressed. I'm a failure, anything, I'm no good at this, I'm always no good at it. There's no point in me trying because it's not going to work out well. There's a real negativity about it, which could be, it links in with that feeling of being overwhelmed. Sometimes you'll hear that I'm worthless, life not worth living, what's the point, why am I here, type questions. Now again, they can sound really negative, but it's symptomatic of them, their mood being really low. And that negative cycle around the thinking of like, things are bad and it's not going to improve. So, and when you hear it, you may think, that doesn't make sense, well, that's not logical. But when we come to this illness, for them it's really hard to think through it and to think logically about it. What we will see in young people will be a change in the behaviour, and I think this will be the more evident ones for parents and for teachers to see. So we'll be not going out anymore, pulling back from the things that they enjoy doing. So if they were sporty, if they're into their sports, they can maybe pull back from going to training or getting involved. If they're into doing particular crafts or hobbies, they can pull back from doing that, where it's just like, I can't be bothered. So the stuff which used to give them enjoyment, they start doing less and less of. if we see a change in the academics at schools, and having trouble with the homework, not getting the work done, and you see a deterioration in their performance, I think that would be a flag for the teachers. But if you're seeing that as well, we're worth just filing that. Okay, there might be something going on for them. Withdrawing from close family and friends. Now, in adolescence, can I check what age or grade levels are your children in? Year 5? Okay. 5? Okay. 3 and 5. Okay, so they're coming up. 8 and 10? Alright. So what we're likely to see across those age levels, there's likely to be difficulties concentrating and focusing in class on an ongoing basis. If they were academically strong, finding the work much harder over an extended period of time, and the major change in the grades. And even their organisational skills, how do they map out the work, how do they problem solve through it, there's usually a change in that we would see. In our older kids, I'll say that there can be a reliance. They will know that they're feeling low. And some of our young people will look at what can I do to address my mood. And so they may talk about, or they may seek out things like alcohol. This can be a way of like lifting the mood or dampening out the bad feelings. But what we usually see initially is that they're withdrawing from family, going into their room, spending a lot of time away from things that they usually enjoy. For our teenagers, they tend to be a little bit more independent and will try that, and will at times want more privacy. But it's judging, like, is it privacy or is it like retreating from the world, like going into the cave? So you can see that over an extended period of time. All right. Now, physical signs, potentially for depression, would be feeling really tired all the time, just saying they've got no energy, even if they've had a good night's sleep, just constantly feeling low or tired. We can see it in adults that they can get sick easily or just generally feel run down, so they're more susceptible to picking up little bugs, like infections, things that usually just push off. Then with headaches, muscle pains, the bottom 3 for me would be the ones to look out for. Now, usually with young people, we would say that there'd be a change in the sleeping pattern. So it can be difficult getting to sleep. So they'll put their head on the pillow, but sleep doesn't. They'll have racing thoughts, or it's just difficult to get to sleep. Or they'll be waking up in the middle of the night and with worry thoughts. And it can also be the other end, that it's difficulty staying. They want to sleep longer. And part of it is, I don't want to get up, I can't be bothered dealing with what I have to deal with. So keep a check on the sleeping problems, or the changes in the routine. We'll also see a change in appetite. Now, for some young people, if they're feeling depressed, they go off their food. So they'll be eating, just generally eating less. For some students, they'll go the other way, and eating will become like a comfort for them. So you may see it eating more and more, and there can be weight gain that goes with that. So again, we're not talking about if they've been to a swim meet, or if they've done something really active and they're really hungry. It would be in general, over a period of weeks or months, you'll see a change in their eating pattern that we need to keep a check on. And that fits in with, the appetite fits in with weight loss or weight gain. We can see a change in the physically, whether it be putting on weight or loss of weight. So this things to keep a check on. So, alright, it's not my warning signs of depression, but I think just be looking out for me, it would be the irregular sleep or the changes in sleep, the changes in the mood, and the key things: sleep, appetite, and weight gain, and any academic changes. Keep a lookout for that. Now I'm going to hand out on each of these for you, so I'll give that to you at the end. So there's a couple of ways. If you suspect that there's, or you're concerned that something's going on, certainly, first, particularly with adolescents, a medical check can be useful. As puberty kicks in, there can be changes in the hormonal levels, which can trigger you're setting that over a sustained period of time, a check with the doctor, they can do a blood test for it, and that may be one of the considerations for the change in the mood. For some young people, it can be things like a transition, like a moving country, a moving school. There can be issues like with peer-related. There can be things which have happened in the family, changes in friends, a death in the family, which can be a trigger for our young people. There is help out there, so I'd recommend like a medical check if you can. And there's certain types of counselling which young people respond really well to. I've written like the CBT. The research coming out is very much based on how you think can affect how you feel. And if you change your behaviours, you can change your mood. So, and it's really effective in working with young people who are depressed. It works really well with adults, but in our setting, it's very effective. So if I'm working with a young person who's low, they respond really well to this model because they can see that, okay, if I do more, then that can affect the body chemistry and they feel better. And a simple example of that would be one of the treatments for depression is keeping them physically active. Like it might be just going for a walk in the sunshine every day for 20 minutes, half an hour. It brings about a chemical change in the body and they actually feel a bit better, a bit more energised. And that leads to a change in the thinking that, oh, I can do this. It does feel okay. So it then has a ripple effect. So CBT and the counselling can be really useful. There are, when we look at a medical check as well, sometimes it might be that there has been a chemical change for the young person, and there are antidepressant medications. We want you to talk closely with the doctor around medications. I think young people needs to be in combination with the counselling, so you can learn skills to manage it and not just being reliant on the medication. But it can be really useful in lifting the mood to a point where they feel like they're functioning, and then the counselling can be effective as well. So talk with the doctor about it. Some of the students report that there's side effects like nausea, headaches, and drowsiness. Now, so it's working with your doctor in what can be used, what works best for your child. Each kid's body chemistry is unique, and so it's working out what works for the child. And that would be the same with adults who are depressed as well, working out what works for them. Now, for our young people, certainly support groups or group counselling can be really useful. There's a couple of places here in KL that offers the group work, and it can help normalise for the young person that, okay, I'm not in this by myself, there's other people that are suffering the same thing, so they do it through in a group setting. And it's interesting because some young people will be worried about coming to talk with the counsellor or talking to the doctor about it. And so there's online forums for like getting information or seeking support. And there's an Australian website which I really like, Youth Beyond Blue. And they have a lot of information on mental health issues for young people, strategies that they can put in place. And they have an online, it's like talk with a counsellor online. And I think initially that can provide that information in a safe environment. And they've been like looking at what's happening for the young person, encouraging them to seek help as well. So they can be initial steps to helping that person. Alright, now there's one other thing which I've been looking at, particularly in helping manage depression, that there are a couple of apps which you can download onto the phones or the iPads. And it can just, some of them are like mindfulness techniques which are around positive self-talk and how a young person, how they talk about themselves to themselves. But that can be a really useful app in helping educate them around depression and how they might manage it as well. So there's some good stuff out there, and I'm looking at those. So in the next, I think next term, I'll be talking with parents around things that you might want to look at for yourself and talking about it with your young person. So are there any questions about depression? Anything that I've been unclear about or things that you've heard about? You want to check? If not, we'll go on to happy topic, anxiety. Alright, so with anxiety, again, our young people will talk about like feeling stressed or anxious in the lead up to the exam period or doing a presentation. And I would see anxiety is a normal part of our daily lives. At a certain point, anxiety keeps us sharp and focused. It serves as a way of keeping us on the ball, keeping us alert, keeping ourselves safe. It's when it becomes more ongoing and chronic that it can get in the way of us functioning normally or getting the best out of ourselves. So again, we would look at anxiety if a young person was experiencing some major changes in their both school life and in home life over a period of time, let's say a month or more, then we may look at, okay, there's a level of anxiety that we need to be looking at. What's the cause and how do we treat it? So, for our young people, it can be, for some, like exams can be very threatening or very overwhelming. Sometimes there can be a death or a change in the family which can trigger, which is experienced as a change, but it could be quite stressful for a young person. There could be things like trauma, which can trigger it as well, anything from a car accident to an injury to a transition like a move from country to country for some young people can be experienced as can be traumatic. So it's actually a major change for them. So again, it's going to be different for each person, but it's something to look out for. So, as I said before, for our teenagers, the stresses around just managing the workload, managing the school, it can be peer issues. Those would be the top two, just managing the stress of school and the study issues. So, broken it down into how we feel, think, and what are the physical symptoms. So, certainly with anxiety, we're going to see a young person maybe being more overwhelmed than they usually would. They've gone from coping, managing a whole range of different activities, to feeling overwhelmed. There'll be a fear. I've written here particularly having to face certain objects, situations, or events. So, for some young people, public speaking can be horrendous, and it can generate a real high level of distress. So that is a form of anxiety. For many young people, like through the practicing and the rehearsing, they can get up and do it. For others, it can just be overwhelming for them. There'll be some situations where you may see that a young person or an adult will be stressed about a particular thing. Now, it can be like fear of small spaces, open spaces, fear of spiders, and fear of heights, that type of stuff. So there'll be certain situations which can trigger a high level of anxiety for some young people. Worry about the physical symptoms. One of the things about anxiety is that the level of worry increases. So, and they can worry about the physical symptoms. So for many students that get anxious or feel like the heart's pounding, the chest tightens, there can actually be a fear that what's going on in my body that's leading to that. Am I having a heart attack? Or is there something wrong? So they worry excessively about physical things. With that is the dread that something bad may happen as well. Now, when we're calm and rational, you can usually think through that sense of dread that something bad is going to happen. You can normalise it. But for our young people, it becomes overwhelming. It becomes overwhelming that something bad is really going to happen. So we'll then see that we're constantly tense, nervous, or edgy, and have a sense of panic that something bad is going to happen. So they're agitated a lot of the time. So, what might you think in a situation like this? So, and we'll hear, hang on, like I can't control it, I feel like I'm out of control, or my body's gone out of control. There will often be worries that people are looking at me or they're judging me. It's almost like their thoughts that are being projected. So it's like, people are always looking at me, they're talking about me, they're going to see that I'm so bad, I'm so anxious, I'm so whatever the fear is. When for many, often we don't see that the young person is physically stressed. They're doing their work in class, but internally they're going through like these mini gymnastics internally with their worry thoughts, and hard to be done, but we won't see that. So unwanted or intrusive thoughts and finding it hard to stop worrying. That's where it will link with the next one, but there will often be like the racing thoughts. So I've got this to do, I've got that to do, and I haven't enough time, what am I going to do? And you'll hear that escalating thoughts, I'm not going to be able to manage, I'm not going to be able to cope, I'm not going to be able to control it. Well, clearly they can in the current modern day. But the unwanted or the intrusive thoughts can be really distressing because they find it hard to slow them down. What else have I got here? You might think about what you think is unhelpful or perhaps even irrational or silly. And when I talk with young people who are experienced, they will be able to, there'll be a part of them who will think, it's just an exam, it's just a test. Or we call it an exam, but it's a test in a big room with lots of other people. And when I've talked to some of the senior kids about it, because I've got this test and it's big, and I'm going to be in a big room and it determines the rest of my life. When we talk to them, if you've done tests before and you've been doing the practice, and then when you start unpacking it, it's like, yeah, that's right, I have been preparing, I have done this before. So there can be that escalating or making it, or going to the worst possible scenario, which is usually very unlikely, but they go to that worst case scenario. So it's trying to rein in the thoughts in a way that makes it more manageable, gives them a greater sense of control. So what we're more like, tapping into the thinking can be difficult for some of our young people because it almost happens like automatically. And I do talk to them about automatic thoughts because when they sit in class, and it can be something you can talk about when you're young at home. Because when they sit in class, there's going to be like an internal dialogue going on. It's like, oh, I really like this, I get it, or I don't get that, I need to ask the teacher. Some kids will be thinking, what's for lunch? You know, what am I going to do when we go to break? But there's a dialogue going on in their head, or a conversation going on the whole time. And if we can help them tune into what's the message, or what are they saying to themselves, because sometimes I can't do this, you know, I'm going to fail, I'm no good, you know, I'm going to be embarrassed in front of my friends. There's a whole dialogue that goes on that they may not be aware of. But once we start, I'll say, unpacking it or becoming clear of what they say to themselves, then you can help them change that conversation. Because some of it's irrational or illogical, but they're just not aware of it. So, the key things that we will see, and some of this will be similar to what you see with the anxiety, with the depression. So, some of the behaviours will be withdrawing from or avoiding situations which cause anxiety. So for some kids it might be, I'm avoiding coming to school on the day where there might be an exam, or they have to do a presentation. It might be that, I have to go swimming and that makes me nervous, so I forgot my swimming shorts, or whatever it is. It'll be those type of things, but it's avoidance. Little rituals in order to relieve anxiety. Now, if anything, that can be like from rubbing of hands to, if we watch, I'll give an example like with AFL footballers, they've all got certain little rituals which they do, and it might be, okay, I have to kick the ball, I pull up my socks, I have to focus, I clench my hands and then I kick the ball. And it will be the same with anxiety. You'll see little rituals in the extreme form. You may have heard of like OCD, they call it obsessive compulsive disorder, but there's little rituals which help the person settle. And you'll sometimes see it with kids, it's like, if I do this, if I only step on the cracks, if I walk on the pavement, that keeps me safe. But at night time I have to go around before I have to go and like check what's under the bed before I get into it, because there's no monsters. You know, I have to check the taps, I have to check the lights before I leave the house, because that allays you for years. Now, that might be, in some of those cases, that's a normal thing to do, but it can also become like a little ritual or routine, which you have to do before you feel you can settle. That's when the anxiety gets in the way. When young people are anxious, they can be less assertive, so you may just see Jack avoiding eye contact, head down, looking less confident. Difficulties making decisions. It's more likely to be that there's such a jumble of thoughts in there, it's hard to think through what they need to do. So it's breaking down the task for them. And then the being easily startled will be that there's a level of agitation or they're wired, something bad's going to happen. So if there's a sudden movement, a sudden noise, something which they haven't expected, they're going to be a little bit more jumpy, a little bit more edgy. Now, the key things for young people are more physiological, it's what's happening in their bodies. And this is where our young people, I think, initially identify, oh, there's something happening for me. And I actually have a little drawing of the human body for them and ask them to mark where it is. And each kid will be different. But the key ones would be things like regular headaches. Young people experience like a band around the head, which feels like a bit of a clamp. So they say when they're really stressed. For some, it can be like they clench their jaw, particularly at night time. Some kids will say they grind their teeth or they clench their jaw, and that can be a sign of stress. Big one would be like the tightness in the chest. So it can be the heart's pounding, the chest tightness, so that there's a shortness of breath which comes with that as well. And young people would report, oh yeah, I'm really tight and I started to feel a little bit dizzy. And it's because the breathing has become shallow, because it's almost like they're panting or breathing rapidly, but they're not getting enough oxygen, so that makes them lightheaded. And then they worry about that too, because they might faint, and what does that mean? So increased heart rate, tightness in the chest, shortness of breath, knot in stomach. And kids will report that in different ways. Butterflies in the stomach, feel like there's a knot in the stomach, or I need to go to the toilet a lot. And we'll also see muscle tension. And kids will report often like tightness in the neck and shoulders. The older kids will say they get a headache, but that's usually because they're really tense in the neck and shoulders, and the muscles tighten in the back of the neck. For our younger kids, they may get a headache, but often their hands go to fists and they'll be really tight. They'll be grasping that pen really tightly, so that they have hand ache from holding the pen really tightly. In some cases, you get the kids describe like tingling in the fingers or in the toes. They call it the tingling in the extremities, and that can be like the heart rate's gone up, and so the blood flow goes to the heart or to the central body, and it can leave them feeling a little bit tingling as well. So it's more a sign of that they're anxious. So there are some key ones for our kids. Sometimes it can be like breaking into a sweat, or they may find their hands shaking as well. It will be different for each of our kids, but just becoming aware of their bodies can be, I think, can help them. Okay, this is what's going on, and that's so that's connected to me feeling anxious and me having those worry thoughts. Because often it can help them regain a sense of control just by understanding what's going on in their body. Now, let me just check that I've covered them. One of the key ones is changing sleeping again, particularly with our young kids. Difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Now, with an anxious child, you'll usually find that in getting into bed, that's when it can be when they're the most tired, but it's the most difficult to get to sleep, and they'll have the racing thoughts. And it can be things that are happening during the day, or things they haven't done, or things they're worrying about, and that's when it starts up. It can wake them up in the middle of the night, so you can have disturbed sleep, and then so they're more tired when they get up in the morning, so their batteries aren't fully recharged. So certainly look out for those little routines. And I think academically what the teachers might see in school would be difficulty staying on task, or there may be some change in their academics as well, because they're not as focused on concentrating as well. So, now, before I jump on to what we might do, there's a number of different types of anxiety. What we usually see with kids is just a generalised anxiety that we can work with. But in more significant cases, we have kids with, we'll call it a social phobia, but that's kids that really, it will be like they're really shy, but it's really difficult for them to engage socially. And that can be very debilitating for a teenager, because in the main, they want to make friends and they want to connect, but it can generate such an anxiety to engage that's a really tough one for them. So seeking help on that one, I think, is really important. Panic disorder can be like, kids will often talk about it, you may have heard about like panic attacks. There can be a sense of like, where I'm going to lose total control and something terrible is going to happen. So it's like the body loses control. It'll be that pounding in the chest, shortness of breath. It's like you can be experienced as if you're going to have a heart attack. That's how it's described. The obsessive compulsive disorder, again, this is a real serious anxiety disorder, because there could be, you've got obsessions, which are the thoughts, and then you've got the compulsive behaviours, which can help settle the short-term thoughts. So then you'll see things like, it usually comes out of things like cleanliness, having to repeatedly wash your hands, or clean, switch off the lights, little rituals and routines, which can be very debilitating for a young person and really embarrassing at school if they feel like, I have to wash my hands or I have things really well, highly organised or ordered on the desk in order to feel like I can do the task. Post-traumatic stress disorder, we're more likely to, well, we can see that when it comes to a significant transition, or there's been something significant happening in the world. And that can be anything like being in a car accident, there can be being like a traumatic death in the family where the young person is still recovering from that. And we're more likely to see things like a kid having flashbacks, being reminded of the experience in certain situations. And then there's particular phobias, which can be like fear of small spaces, fear of crowds, fear of spiders, that type of things, to a significant degree. Now, first I don't like small spaces, and I've had the experience of like going into like a tunnel or a cave. I went to Vietnam and went to the Coogee tunnels, and it's like you had to actually crouch down and almost crawl, and I couldn't do it because of that sense of like things coming in on you. I really didn't like it. So for me, that's interesting that I think that way, because in reality, nothing bad was going to happen. But for me, it was like, oh, I really didn't like it. So each one of us is going to go with things which we don't like, and for our kids, things which really trigger. Right. So again, our treatment options. We have, again, the cognitive behavioural therapy is, in the counselling sessions, has been found to be really effective in addressing the anxieties. Anti-anxiety medication, that's certainly out there, and some really effective ones which really just lower the physiological response, and that helps calm the child, and then they're able to start exploring, okay, what's the thinking that's going on here, what can they do to help manage themselves. And I think we found that it's reducing the symptoms, the physical symptoms can be a great way of like helping work with the other stuff. So we've got support groups and online forums. It's interesting, there's an online option which I think is great for some of our kids, and it's really like CBT online, but it's like a little program that they work through, and it's educating them about their thoughts and about their bodies and what they can do if they are feeling stressed, breathing techniques, mindfulness, relaxation, what can I do to take control of the physiological response as well as the thinking. So that's a very cool program. There's also a program, a group program which we can run, which I can run at the school, and it's called School Kids, and it's about helping young people learn about anxiety and how they can manage it. And it's done in a group setting, and there's like a booklet and sessions for parents as well about how they manage it. So there's lots of really good resources out there. The apps that I was talking about, there's some great mindfulness apps, and again, teaching young people just how to control their breathing, learn to relax their bodies, and to control the thoughts. And mindfulness is about acknowledging or recognising the thoughts, but letting it go. It's like, oh, so that's happening. Oh, this is what's happening for me, without hooking into the negative thoughts or feelings. And it's been found to be a really powerful tool with our young people. So certainly having a look at the mindfulness apps can be really valuable. Alright, before I jump on to the final one, any questions about anxiety? Anything which was unclear? We had questions about. Alright, now the last one. Look, this is an interesting one. I've called it self-harm and self-injury, because it's something which we hear about both in the media, but it's certainly something which is, I'd say, common amongst adolescents. So self-harm or self-injury refers to people deliberately hurting their bodies, and it's done in secret. Now, my experience has been that it's usually through a form of cutting, and it usually happens on the arms or on the legs, and as I've said here, it can come in other forms. Picking the skin, it can be punching or burning the body. But then the important thing is it's not about trying to kill themselves. It's the young person is looking for a way to help manage some difficult feelings. But they usually have trouble articulating it, so they look for other ways to release the stress within. So we're likely to see it can be like little cuts, it can be scratches, but it can be done with a fingernail or other sharp instruments, but it can be scratches on the skin, or it can be far more, delicate or detailed. Usually a young person will do it right, so it's a secret as well. Now, one of the things about it is that a young person often describes it as a way of coping with feeling numb. And usually there's a level of distress which comes with it. So they'll say, I feel numb, I don't feel anything. So they do it to help them feel that, okay, I'm alive. Or they do it because it's like, it's a way of like letting out the pain or the distress which they're not able to articulate. So it usually goes against our common experience with love. Humans usually avoid pain. We don't like it, we avoid it. So for a young person to do it, says that there's a level of distress which is beyond the norm, but they're not able, for whatever reasons, they're not able to articulate it. They see it as a coping mechanism that it lets it out for them. Some people will do it once, others it can become a habit. There are certainly risks involved. If you hear about it or see it, certainly talking about with your young people. One of the difficulties is that they're looking for ways to manage, and they'll do it in secret because at some level they know that it goes against what we would want them to do, and it can be risky. Partly risky because there's risk of infection because of like that deliberate scratching. They can do more damage than they anticipate they're doing. But for them to be able to find the way to feel judged or that if they're not going to be understood can increase that sense of distress. So it takes work, it takes a lot of work in working with them. So if something which does come up, then I'd say I want to work with you in supporting the child. If I was to learn about it at school, I work with the child and we're engaging the family to support the child as well. good that we know that it does happen. Any questions about the self-harming? Hopefully it's something you won't have to deal with. But really important that you're aware of it, but because it is within our adolescents, they do think they try to be creative in how they try to cope, but sometimes they don't think through the consequences of what that might mean. And I think at this point, are there any questions about harm threatening, like self-harm or self-injury?
Any doctors that suggest that scream out loud can be really
As a type of therapy?
yeah, screaming out say.
And we're saying therapy which encourages that. See, when we look at CBT, often I think helping young people have their voice to be more assertive can be a therapy in itself. So we may be encouraging how do we help them be more assertive, how do we help them vocalise what's going on in here. Certainly with things like depression, sometimes young people can be really angry, but it's like it's bottled up. In the same as young people who self-harm, often something has happened but they're not able to articulate it. So the therapy is more in helping them articulate, express what's going on in here. In looking at the there's a number of different counselling services around the city. And the two major hospitals, Glen Eagles and Puntai, both have a counselling service. A number of families have used the Mind faculty over in Mont Chiara, and they arrange different counsellors, I think, to work with different personalities. But I know that they're very experienced in using like the CBT approach and working with young people. And I've had some experience with Oasis Place, which is based in Brickfields, and they have both services have psychology and psychiatry, so there's a medical component to it, but they also have speech therapy and OT and many other services as well. Certainly, in terms of like the counselling service, they both have individual and group work for our young people, as well as sort of resources.